families who are trickling in to join us. Just wanted to welcome all of you to our financial aid session. I know we're kind of in that moment where a lot of families are applying to different schools, thinking about costs, feeling a little overwhelmed about the cost of living, where you guys are coming from really amazing places, so navigating everyday costs alongside with college costs as well that are coming up really soon. So we wanted to take this moment to kind of open it up to all of our families to talk about financial aid, talk about some of those opportunities for loans, grants, scholarships, and really just kind of take the temperature down a little bit to know that you guys aren't alone. We're all trying to navigate through this day by day, and just trying to make sure that we do all we can to support you and your families. We have some really amazing counselors here today to support you from different regions. My name is Donna Ramos-Barsana, and I have the honor of supporting all the students from Hawaii. And I'm going to send it over to Lauryn to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining. I'm Lauryn. I'm an admissions counselor, and I have the privilege of working with students from Southern California, Colorado, and Central Oregon. And I'm going to pass it over to Devin.
Hi everyone, name is Devin Jones. I'm one of the admissions counselors at Pacific, and I get the privilege to work with all the students from Northern California, in Oregon from Salem down to Eugene, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and then all of the southern states or kind of the Sun Belt states. And I am going to pass it to my colleague, Brant.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brant Minor. This is Jack Minor, and I get to work with all of our students from the Bay. This is Maggie. This is Maggie here too. I get to work with all of our Bay Area students, Southern Oregon students, Multnomah, and Clackamas County. So I'm excited to be here, and I get to pass it to the legend. Been at Pacific for a little while. We all know who we're talking about. Uncle Jeff Grundon. I'm going to pass it over to you, Uncle.
Hey, thanks a lot, Brent. Welcome, everybody. Exciting to be here with you all this evening. I'm Jeff Grundon. I'm also an admissions counselor here at Pacific. I am really blessed to serve the students in Washington County, Oregon, Yamhill County, Oregon, Columbia County, Oregon, and most of the Central Valley of California. So it's really awesome to have you here, and we're going to share a lot of great information. So I'm going to turn it back over to our host, Donna.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we have some really great counselors who are not on this Zoom at the moment, but we definitely have someone to support you from every region. So if you didn't hear the region that you're from of what we introduced ourselves, not to worry, we will have someone supporting you every step of the way. And I want to introduce our amazing financial aid counselor and just a really great resource to all of our families. I know that financial aid can seem like something where you're just asking questions and it feels kind of robotic, feels like it's cut dry and there's no face to the name. But we definitely have someone who's supporting you through all these steps, and we have a counselor for every student. And I just wanted to thank Griffin for taking some time to talk to families about financial aid. And we're hoping and crossing our fingers that you select Pacific in the end. And if in the end, what we really are excited about is that this is just an opportunity for you to learn about financial aid in general. And so just wanted to make sure that we provide that resource to all of you. So without further ado, I send it over to Griffin.
Alrighty, thanks, Donna. And yeah, again, my name is Griffin Shaulis, and my official, like, nitty-gritty title at Pacific is I work with most of our scholarships and then also doing outreach for our admissions folks. I get to partner with them and come and speak at events like this and kind of, like Donna said, be the face for something that I think can be pretty anxiety inducing for our families, right? I feel like financial aid is oftentimes at the top of people's lists of things they want to know more about. And it's oftentimes at the top of people's lists for things that don't make any sense, right? And really our goal here at Pacific is just to make sure that you all know that you've got folks in our office, you've got our admissions folks who are here to really walk you through the entire step, right? And help make something that has historically been very overwhelming, historically has had, I think, a lot of barriers, and kind of help break some of those things down and make it a little bit more understandable, whether Pacific is your place or just for financial aid in general. So I'm going to share my screen we're going to go through presentation here. Okay. So what we're going to go over tonight is going to be a good amount of things, right? And I always like to tell folks, everything I go over tonight, you are not expected to retain all of it, right? We're going to go over kind of some info for contact for the financial aid office here at Pacific. I want to really dive deep into the financial aid timeline at Pacific and what the process looks like. I know financial aid can sometimes be frustrating and confusing because different things come into play at different times, and different pieces of information in regards to financial aid really come out at different times as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about when you can expect some of those things, just to kind of give you an idea of what to expect as we continue throughout the process. I want to show us what your financial aid package is actually going to look like. So I've been able to kind of draft up something to show y'all that will look really similar to what your actual financial aid package that you're going to receive from Pacific once you actually get that information in your hands from us. Once we start sending out those financial aid packages, we're going to go over the different components of a financial aid package, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some additional steps, right? Or some additional opportunities rather that exist both at Pacific, and then also some things that exist outside of Pacific in regards specifically to scholarships mostly. And we're also going to cover and talk a little bit about some loan information as well, just to kind of go over. So I want to first give us some information about who we are, how you can contact us, and what we do, right? So we are on our Forest Grove campus. We're located in Marsh Hall, which is the hall that is behind me currently in my background, and you'll also see it in a lot of our marketing materials. We are open, windows open, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, right? So some ways you can get in touch with us are at either our office's general email, which is just financialaid@pacificu.edu. You can call our front line, which is this number here, or you can also get in touch with your individual financial aid counselor. And we'll talk a little bit about this as well. So like Donna said, at Pacific, every single student is going to have an assigned individual financial aid counselor. And this financial aid counselor is going to be your go-to contact person for financial aid from now all the way through the end of your senior year, in some cases even beyond, right? If we're working with alumni or potentially our graduate students too, right? So we have two amazing, fantastic financial aid counselors in our office, Jennifer and Stacy. Jennifer is going to be the counselor for students who have last names that are A through L. And then Stacy works with our students who have last names that start with M through Z. So this is their contact info on here. Their info is on our website as well, and our admissions folks always are able to give that contact info too for folks who are looking to connect with financial aid. Kind of like I said at the start, we are a really good contact for all things financial aid at Pacific University. But then also, if you are going through and doing the FAFSA and you're hitting a roadblock and would like to talk to a real human on the phone who has a real voice, again, like Donna said, a real face, get in touch with us, right? I always tell folks, if you are looking for general financial aid information and don't know who to go to, a small private school is a really good place to reach out, because you're going to get someone who's going to actually answer the phone, right? You're going to get someone who's going to get back to you when they get a chance, or you can leave a voicemail and then we'll just return your call when we're able, right? So stay in touch with us as those questions come up, because in financial aid, they likely will, right? So just know that you've got contact folks here who are your contact people, like I said, now, and then the entire time that your student is a student at Pacific. And these are relationships kind of similar to your admissions counselors, to your professors and other staff here on campus, right? We want your financial aid counselor in the financial aid office to be somewhere where you go to, you have repeat interactions with the same people, build rapport, you build a relationship with that financial aid counselor so that they know who you are and who your student is and can help assist you in regards to anything you need in financial aid as you're at your time at Pacific. Talking a little bit about the timeline, right? Financial aid timeline here for our incoming students at Pacific. Fall and winter is really what we like to think of as the start of the financial aid year, right? Or the start of the financial aid process in general. This is typically going to be when that free application for federal student aid opens up, which I think is what most people think of when they think of financial aid. And we'll talk a little bit about this in a little bit later on as well. And then it's also going to be when scholarship applications start to open up. So we're going to go through and talk about some different scholarship resources. These applications, whether they be at Pacific or if they exist outside of the Pacific ecosystem, largely are starting to open now, right? So I kind of consider anywhere from October, November through February, March, April as kind of like the busy season for scholarship applications, right? So that tends to be when most stuff opens up and once you can start getting in and actually completing these applications, which we'll talk about again later on. Once we move into winter and spring, this is going to be the time to make sure that you've got that FAFSA completed if you're going to be finishing that free application for federal student aid. It's also going to be when we, as an institution, start to send out our official finalized financial aid packages, right? So the timeline we're working with right now is we're estimating folks is getting that first round of financial aid packages out starting mid to early February, and then you'll have that information in your hand to kind of start working with us and get those questions answered. Like I said, this is also going to be when you're going to start to see a lot of those scholarship applications start closing, right? So institutionally here at Pacific, our deadline for most of our incoming student scholarships is going to be March 1st. And then around that time is also going to be when many of the outside scholarship resources that I'll go over are going to start to close as well in a similar time frame. Moving on throughout the process, spring and summer is really going to be your time to work with our office, work with your counselors to get any questions answered, and then also finish what's called your financial aid checklist, which I'll talk about a little bit as well. Again, as we move through spring and summer, you're going to start to see some more deadlines as well. We've got some stuff that doesn't close until later on. And then summer, fall is going to be the time to kind of finalize any info for additional things that you need, and then start those classes at Pacific as well. So, like I mentioned, the FAFSA is currently open for the 26-27 academic year. So for folks who haven't gotten in yet and are planning on doing that free application for federal student aid to potentially be considered for either some federal aid, some state-based financial aid, or even some additional aid here at Pacific, definitely please do so as early as possible, right? Kind of like I was showing on that last slide, that first batch of financial aid awards that get sent out are always going to be our admitted students who have filed the FAFSA by the time that we're building those financial aid packages, right? So to be a part of really that first batch, I always tell folks to be admitted and then try to get that FAFSA in by at least the end of January to ensure that you're in that first push that we send out to our students and families, right? FAFSA is operating largely as intended this year. Department of Ed was able to actually get it open a couple weeks early in September before that October 1 date. Folks are able to get in. Thankfully, the form for most folks is still taking anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, pending any issues with the form. But like I said, if you are trying to go through and have been running into some consistent issues, get in touch with us, right? There are some workarounds that we've got on our side, and I would much rather have you call and chat with us than trying to call the folks at Federal Student Aid and potentially sitting on hold for a long time or just not hearing back, right? So if you've got questions about the FAFSA, please get in touch with us. Let us know what we can do because it's going to be, again, the best way to make sure that we can get that financial aid package to you as soon as possible. I always tell folks who are potentially on the fence about completing the FAFSA, if you're thinking that you're going to fall outside of potentially any federal or state-based grant eligibility and you're not interested in borrowing any federal student loans, please still complete it because sometimes what we're able to do with that information is offer some additional grant funds on our end. We have what's called the Pacific Grant here on our side at Pacific that we calculate using FAFSA information and kind of a holistic view of the entirety of the rest of the financial aid package. So a lot of times what happens is we have folks who fall outside of those grant-based programs that are through the FAFSA that do qualify for some additional grant-based aid through Pacific by just completing that FAFSA, right? And then that's going to be grant aid that's going to follow with you for all 4 years here at Pacific, just like all of the other resources that I'm going to talk about as well later on too. So make sure you get this in when you can. If you've already completed it, fantastic. You're good to just sit and wait for our office to do what we've got to do now. But again, if you haven't started, go ahead and get started and then reach out to us if you've got questions as you're kind of going through. So once our office starts sending out financial aid notices here after the turn of the year, what's going to happen is you're going to get 2 different notices from our office, right? These are sent simultaneously. So typically what happens is you're going to actually get a digital notice from our office first, and then we also send a physical piece in the mail that's going to show up. The physical piece is going to contain an actual paper financial aid package, as well as a little pamphlet brochure that has some other really important financial aid information as well. And that kind of as a first round is the best way to view that information, right? It's nice because you have it actually printed in front of you. You can reference it. And then at the same time, what's going to happen is students are going to receive a digital notice with instructions for how to log into their online portal in regards to financial aid. And this is largely where they're going to interact with that financial aid package, not only as first year students, but then as current students as well, when they're going to be sophomores, juniors, seniors as well, right? And that online portal is not only used for financial aid, it's actually used for a whole bunch of different systems at Pacific. But we find that the financial aid package is oftentimes how students first interact with that online portal as well. I don't want to get too much in depth with this now because we're actually going to have some presentations later on that will go more into this once it's actually time. This digital piece, the main part of it is what's called a student's financial aid checklist. And this is going to be where students will go through, they'll have a view of their entire financial aid package that's broken down by individual awards. They'll be able to go through and accept all of the scholarships that they've received, either accept or decline any federal loan eligibility that they may have, depending on that FAFSA information, and then actually finalize their financial aid information for the year, right? So this is going to be a checklist, and the financial aid checklist is the main way that students finalize their financial aid for the year. There are two things on here that I just want to get on folks' radar that will go into much detail later on once we kind of get closer to the dates where you'll be accessing this. But oftentimes, for folks who do complete the FAFSA, what happens is sometimes we are asked as an office to collect some additional information to verify info that comes from that FAFSA. And that's going to show up under required documentation on that checklist. So it'll actually show an action needed next to that required documents if there's anything our office needs to finalize financial aid eligibility. And then also in that online checklist, there's a place where students can report any outside scholarships that they've been receiving or have gotten notice that they're going to get for the upcoming school year. So I'm going to show some outside scholarship resources here in this presentation. And if students are engaging with these, or if you get any scholarships potentially from your school or any local organizations, there's actually a place in your online portal where you can get in, report these scholarships, and then we can add it to your actual financial aid package. So it'll show as an outside scholarship on your financial aid digitally in your online account as well. So just important information to have as we move into later on. So what you're seeing here is what the physical piece of your financial aid package is going to look like, right? So this is going to be a one-pager that's going to show up in the mail from our office. There'll be, like I said, a trifold pamphlet with some additional info. And what this is going to show you is it's going to actually break down our cost of attendance for the year, right? So this is information that you'll have where it's going to show you any charges relating to potentially tuition and fees, any charges related to housing for folks who are going to be living on campus. And then a big piece as well that I really like to highlight too is a cost of attendance. Every school is required to have a cost of attendance. You'll hear schools often abbreviate it as COA. It's going to be broken down by direct costs and indirect costs. Direct costs are going to be costs that are actually billed by an institution, whereas indirect costs are going to be estimates that won't ever actually show up on a bill, but that schools are required to estimate for students. So this is going to be things like books and supplies, transportation, miscellaneous expenses. So these are things that schools are required to estimate that won't ever actually show up on the bill from Pacific. When you're looking at that financial aid package, the financial aid that's offered is going to also be broken down into two different places, right? So first, it's going to show you all of the scholarships and grants that folks are eligible for, right? And this is going to break down any scholarships and grants that folks are receiving. So it's going to have that academic scholarship that you receive upon admission, any other scholarships that have been received from Pacific as well, potentially if folks are eligible for the Pacific grant or eligible for the Pell grant or potentially Oregon Opportunity Grant for our Oregon residents. And then under that, it's going to have any loan eligibility that you have, right? So we really, really, really like to make it clear what things are scholarships and grants that students will never have to be paid back versus financial aid pieces that are loans that do have to actually be paid back, right? And the physical piece is going to break each of those things down as folks have it and move forward. Talking a little bit about, again, some of those components that folks are going to see on that actual financial aid piece. And then also want to touch a little bit on renewal for those things, right? I feel like sometimes scholarships and financial aid that students get, institutions don't always make it super clear what is going to be for that first year and what is only for that first year versus what things are going to be automatically renewable for up to 4 years. The really nice thing about pretty much every single piece of financial aid at Pacific is any aid that comes from Pacific is going to be renewed for 4 years as long as you're a student here, right? And maintaining at least 2.0 GPA. The requirement is completing at least 67% of the attempted credits. So, for example, a good way that I like to think about this is if a student is in 12 credits, this would just be completing 8 of those 12 credits would be meeting that requirement, right? So these scholarships from Pacific, this is going to include that Pacific Academic Scholarship. That's going to range anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000 a year awarded upon admission, potentially a senior preview day scholarship. So folks who have attended senior preview day, you've already got a lot of this information, which is great. If you haven't attended a senior preview day and don't know what a senior preview day is, definitely contact your admissions folks and get connect with them just because it's another way to get an awesome $2,000 a year scholarship just for showing up and watching a couple folks present. And you get to hear me blabber about financial aid a little bit more. Also, we have what are called our talent awards, which I'll talk a little bit about later on as well, where we partner with our different departments on campus. Then anything that is need-based, right? And these are going to be pieces of financial aid that we consider when looking at that FAFSA information, right? So this is going to be aid that's calculated based on those FAFSAs. So that's going to be grants, loans, and then federal work study as well. Same criteria, 2.0 GPA, 67% of attempted credits, and then just making sure that folks are refiling that FAFSA every single year as well. Transitioning a little bit to talk about some financial aid opportunities, right? Some things that you all can be doing and looking into now when you're starting to go through this financial aid process. You heard me mention our talent awards, and these are scholarship opportunities only for incoming students, prospective students that are looking to apply and attend Pacific University. These opened on November 1st and have, again, you heard me mention it earlier, that March 1st deadline, right? So these are available currently on our website. And like I said, these are scholarship opportunities where largely we partner with our different departments on campus. So we have talent awards in music, creative writing, speech and debate. There's an art talent award. There's a talent award for creative writing, computer science. So there's a whole ton of different scholarships that are available for students based on the stuff that you all are interested in, right? So this is a really good way to continue to stay involved with some things that you've done potentially in and outside of class during your time as a high school student, potentially even before that. Or if you're just looking to get involved with any of these things starting here at Pacific, it's also a really, really great way to get involved. And I always tell folks, our office handles the distribution and the intake of these applications, but it's not me who's sitting down and watching your actual music audition and reviewing your application, right? It's our actual music faculty who have worked in music, who go off and do concerts with folks, and they are the ones who are reviewing that application, reviewing your information, and connecting with you, right, in regards to that scholarship application. So it's a really, really good way to get connected to those departments, get connected to the folks here at Pacific who are actually going to be involved with your day-to-day classwork activities, right? So engage with these scholarships. I'm actually also going to throw, once I'm done with this presentation, I'll make sure I throw the page for these in the chat as well, just so you all have it. Engage with these resources, right? Our departments get really, really, really excited to hear from students every single year. I have department heads who are emailing me actually earlier this week, and they were like, "Ooh, what are the talent award applications look like? Anything exciting coming through?" So they really, really, really want to hear from students, and they really, really, really want to give students money for things that you all are amazing at and involved with, right? So these talent awards range anywhere from three up to potentially $7,000 to $8,000 a year. And like I said, at Pacific, we're really, really big on making sure that if we give you something that first year, it stays with you the entire time that you're here. So these scholarships, as long as folks are maintaining involvement to continue to be eligible, are going to renew for up to 4 years here at Pacific of full-time enrollment, as long as folks are meeting those criteria that I listed earlier, right? So engage with these resources, use them, apply for them. I also always tell folks, if we get to February 28th, you remember that these are still open and you haven't applied, it's not too late. Our departments don't start opening or don't start reviewing these until the deadline is passed, right? So we wait for every single scholarship application to come in before I distribute it off to our departments. So you don't have a disadvantage if you apply closer to the deadline versus if you applied tomorrow, right? So engage with these resources, definitely check them out. Scroll through the webpage and just see if there are any on there that you're eligible for, and submit as many applications as you can. Moving to talk about some scholarship opportunities that exist outside of Pacific. A big one I've always got a plug for potentially our Oregon residents is what's called the OSAC scholarship application. The OSAC scholarship application is one scholarship application that applies you for anywhere. I think now it's between 650 and 700 individual scholarships through the state of Oregon. So if we're talking about time invested versus potential outcome, it's always going to be the best bang for your buck as far as scholarship applications for our Oregon students. It's a really good resource to engage with your first year of school, and a really good resource to engage with the entire time that you're a student as well. I have Oregon students who didn't get anything their first year, who applied for it years after, and were able to receive some additional scholarship funds through that way too. So definitely check it out. I believe that the scholarship application also opened November 1st. Their deadline, it'll be on their website, typically also tends to fall anywhere from mid-February kind of to early March as well. Next, I want to talk a little bit about some scholarship search engines. And these ones listed here are some that I've actually had students find the most amount of success with. Kind of similar to our talent awards. I'll make sure to throw these in chat just so folks have it. And then I'll also make sure to distribute this presentation off to Donna. We can get all these links in your hands in case you miss the ones that come through chat. But I think the outside scholarship search is where students really can find a lot of frustration in regards to trying to find scholarships. I know doing a Google search for scholarships is horrifying, right? It brings up a bunch of stuff to sift through. A lot of it looks like it's junk and like it's stuff that you're never ever going to hear back from anyone from. So definitely engage with these ones. These are all ones that I've had incoming and current students tell me they find some success with. This last one, it's called Kaleidoscope, is one that I had a current student show me last year. And she was able to nab anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 through these scholarships. So check these resources out. I also always tell students, please pick one, maybe two maximum to really dive deep in. You all have loaded schedules. You've got the college search to contend with. And then you also want to slightly enjoy being a senior, right? So please don't let the outside scholarship search consume you. And also know that if you're needing a little bit of additional help, reach out to our office, right? What I've done in the past when I was a counselor is I would have students send me things that they were interested in, whether it be in the classroom or outside of the classroom. And then I was able to look and do some digging on my end to see if I could find any outside scholarships that folks haven't familiarized themselves with or hadn't heard of. So engage with us if you're having a hard time. Also, always encourage folks, if you're at a high school who has a college counselor, those folks usually have kind of their finger on the pulse for any local things that they've had students get in the past. So reach out, ask if they have a curated list or know of any local organizations that are offering scholarships as well, because they can be a really good resource. But I do know that the number of things available definitely varies on area and high school as well, right? But always a good place to check with them as well too. Touching briefly on some additional loan resources, right, that are available for folks who are going to be potentially borrowing, right? A big one is what's called the Parent Plus loan, right? And so this is similar to those federal loans that students are eligible for by completing the FAFSA. This is another federal loan through that federal system that's able to be borrowed by the parent of a dependent undergraduate student, right? So application for this typically opens later on in spring. The The Parent Plus loan, a couple important things about it is I always tell folks it's a loan that's borrowed in the parent's name when it's actually taken out, and it's going to be in the parent's name for the lifetime of the loan, right? So unlike private student loans, where it can't eventually be deferred actually onto the student or is put in the student's name, it's going to be in the parent's name for the lifetime of the loan. So just a really important thing to know when folks are looking at that as well. Similarly, kind of some same info is the Parent Plus loan, in contrast to those private student loans, doesn't determine an interest rate based on any actual credit check, right? So the Department of Ed runs kind of a soft check, and then if someone's approved, they have the same interest rate across the board, right? So for this current year, that rate is about 8.5%. The past couple of years have seen a little bit of a jump. So I would tell folks to anticipate that again for this next year. What the rate will be, we'll actually know once the application opens later on in spring as well. Also talking a little bit about those private student loans. And these are going to be loans that are actually borrowed rather in the student's name, typically though having some form of cosigner, right? Whether that be parent or someone else. And when thinking about these, I think some of the biggest ones that come to mind for folks are probably going to be Sallie Mae. Earnest is another big one, College Avenue. And these, like I said previously, have interest rates that are actually based on a credit check, typically of a cosigner. And so based on this, interest rates really, really vary. I've seen folks been able to get some really, really low and good interest rates, definitely better than that 8.5, 9.5 from the plus loan. And then on the flip side, I've also seen some interest rates that are higher, right? And pushing up into the teens too. So definitely varies depending on situation. And for folks who are going to be doing some additional borrowing, which one is a better option also definitely varies depending on situation as well too. Another thing to consider, kind of like I said, is a lot of these private student loan companies do have programs where a cosigner can be released, right? So with that Parent Plus loan, going to be in the parent's name for the entire time of the loan. Whereas with some of these private loan resources, if someone cosigns, oftentimes there are programs to get those cosigners released on these loans so that then it's just in the student's name. And that'll be something, once we get to spring and summer and you're starting to go through and do applications, if you're looking at borrowing additional loans, you'll be able to talk through with the lenders that you're looking at as well. Last couple things, just want to show this slide. Like I said, in these presentations, I tend to throw a lot of information at folks. Financial aid can be overwhelming. There's a lot of different terminology. This is probably the most important slide that I'll show you, right? Outside of potentially some scholarship resources too. So FAFSA information uses always 2 years prior income or tax info rather. So for example, for 26-27, the FAFSA is going to be pulling tax info from the 2024 tax year, right? As an office and as a profession in general, financial aid is cognizant of the fact that what that means is that sometimes the information that we're looking at is out of date, right? So if folks have had potentially any changes in job status, if there's been changes to income level over the past couple of years, or if folks have had any medical expenses that have piled up that aren't covered by insurance, or if folks have potentially younger siblings who they're paying private school tuition on, these are the kind of things that our office really, really, really wants to know about. I always tell folks too, it doesn't have to be information that's only viewable or implicated on taxes, right? The FAFSA can be a beast, right? It asks a lot of questions. There's a lot of info that it wants. There is also a lot that it does not ask. I've always been of the mindset that the idea that we as an institution or as financial aid professionals in general can have a clear and concise view of your financial picture from a form that you can do online in 15 to 25 minutes is silly, right? And it's unrealistic. And so we understand that there are things that are a picture, that are a part of people's financial situation that actually doesn't show up on that FAFSA and that we don't know about until you reach out. So if there's anything at all that you would like our office to know about, if there's anything at all that you'd like our office to be able to potentially consider, please reach out to your financial aid counselor, right? Reach out to our office, start these conversations. A lot of times what it'll start is a back and forth of figuring out, okay, this is something that we can take into account. What kind of documentation do we need to take this info into account and be able to potentially make some changes? Thankfully, as financial aid professionals, we have a good amount of flexibility with the kind of things that we can actually factor into those decisions. We're just required to document all of it, right? So we want to make sure that if there's any information that we are required to get to make those changes, we start those conversations early, right? So that we can make sure that once you start getting these financial aid packages and getting this info from our office, that we're in a place where you're getting the best financial aid possible as early as possible, because I know folks want to start making those decisions, right? And a big part of those decisions is inevitably financial aid. So we want to make sure that the information that you get to us, we can start plugging that in, making sure we've got a clear picture to make sure that we can take into account anything at all that you'd like us to be aware of. I would say probably anywhere from 50 to 60% of just what our counselors' roles are is to fight for students, right? And to help make sure that the financial aid that you receive as a student, as a family, is as representative as possible as we can get of your individual scenario. Like Donna said at the beginning, financial aid is very much not a one size fits all. I think historically, financial aid has been looked at as a part of the college application process that has been pretty transactional, right? You do the FAFSA, we build a financial aid package, we send it to you, and then we become largely unreachable for the next couple months. And that's not how we want to operate, right? That's not the kind of relationship that we want to build with our students. That's not the kind of relationship we want to build with our families. We want to make sure that if there's anything at all that we can do to take into account on that financial aid package, that is a part of your individual circumstances, that we do so, right? So please reach out, get connected with us, and let us know what you need. This, again, this is our office, Marsh Hall. We are on the first floor here. So these windows down here on the right are our office here. Contact us, financialaid@pacificu.edu. Here is our general phone number. Like I said, this can be if you've got questions about financial aid at Pacific that is really nitty gritty Pacific questions, things you want to know about our scholarships, our financial aid. Or this can be if you've got a question about something on the FAFSA. What does this question mean? What does this spot mean? What do I enter here on the FAFSA? Those are the kind of questions that we are answering phone calls and fielding phone calls all the time for. Like I said at the beginning, if you've got a really quick question, call a small private school because you'll get an office that'll pick up and get you an answer pretty quick, and you don't have to wait in queues. You don't have to wait for someone to get you off hold. So get in touch with us if you need something. And I know that financial aid can be a lot. It can oftentimes be kind of the biggest piece when people are looking at it and applying to school. So we want to make sure that the biggest piece of that process is something that's going to be understandable, digestible, and accessible for every student and every family. And breaking down as many of those barriers, like I said, that we can. Donna, that's all the scheduled programming that I've got for y'all. I know I want to open it up to just a general Q&A. There are no dumb questions in financial aid. I always tell folks if there are dumb questions in financial aid, I am asking them to my boss 10 times a week. So if I've got questions, I'm sure that you all have got questions, right? So anything that we can help out with. And while we get those, Donna, I don't know if any came through on your end, I'll try to pull up some links for those scholarships that I was showing.
Yeah, first before we jump into the questions, thank you so much, Griffin, for just being so open and honest with our families and recognizing that it's a lot to take in. And as you're going through the slides, even though, we've been in admissions year after year, things change. And I'm so happy that you're continuing to be open with our families and honest through the whole process. So thank you so much for sharing that information. I was taking notes too. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize this, or that's a really great website for scholarships. And so families, what we encourage all of you to do is, like Griffin said, first and foremost, to ask, right? Say, hey, here's our situation, or we opened up the FAFSA and we're not understanding that question. We're here in the process, we applied. What are we missing? What's next? And so as we take you guys through this entire process, we're going to kind of give you as many resources as we can, especially when it comes to costs and financial aid, and to support all of you. And Griffin, we had some questions that came through privately to me, so I'll just first ask the one that's kind of a little bit more open that was sent to all of us through Brant, was if we have another sibling that could be attending a private school, does that come into play? Just wanted to clear the air for that question.
Yeah, really, really good question. So as far as another sibling who's attending a private university, That is not something that's factored anymore into the FAFSA side of the equation, but that is, again, something that I want to make sure that we know about when we're looking at decisions on our side, right? So that's not going to be something that's automatically going to be considered in the FAFSA equation as folks go through. Unfortunately, that was something that was removed a couple of years ago, but that we recognize very much is still a real factor for families. So that would be the kind of thing where, again, connect with your financial aid counselor to kind of start that conversation. If it's younger siblings who are potentially you're paying for private school tuition for potentially high school and under, that is something that we are still very much allowed to change FAFSA information for. So if that is the case, definitely reach out to us. One thing that can be tricky when we're looking this early is that we're required to get tuition info for the year that the student will be attending school. So what that means is that we'll need tuition info for that school for 26-27. Some institutions are able to provide that this early, but I know sometimes I've had to have folks wait until February, March until they actually get that tuition info from those schools too. So
Yeah, thank you, Griffin. Yeah, and so like again, mentioning those kind of things that are causing a little bit more financial burden on your families. I wish it could consider cost of living. Some families will say, hey, I live in such and such place, milk is $10. And I know, Griffin, that's something that we wish we could take into consideration. But there's some other things that we do consider. A family was wondering, kind of along those lines, if we have a loss of job right now, is this the time to tell you, or do we need to wait till our students accepted? What is a timeline looking for these circumstances?
yeah, I would definitely encourage you to reach out right now just to start the point of contact and start that conversation. A lot of times to make changes, the feds do prefer that we are at least a few months out from a job change. But if you've had job changes that have started now, by the time that we actually get to building financial aid packages and sending those out, we'll be at the point where we can start potentially making those adjustments. And again, it's a lot easier once we already know your situation. You're reaching back out to us once we're building those packages and saying, hey, I still am out of a job. What can we do? Do you need any additional info from me? So I would say reach out to start those conversations now. Stacey and Jennifer will be able to give you a really good idea of what kind of information they're going to need, potentially any documents that they need right now, and then anything that they're going to need once we're actually at the place where we can start making those changes. So
Yeah, and kind of along those lines too, Griffin, what if a family all of a sudden got a little boost of income and they're like, oh, is that something we need to report? Is that something that, what do we need to do at that point? Which is a
no, yeah.
nice problem
So
to have, right?
yeah, no, a good problem to have. And if it's something that's happened after after the tax information from 26-27, or rather from 2024, that's on the 26-27 FAFSA, I don't want to know about it, right? We don't need to hear about it. You don't need to share that information with us. I always tell families I only really want to look at that information if it's going in the way that is negatively impacting financial picture, but will positively impact financial aid. Um, I oftentimes, sometimes the situation that happens is I ask for tax information for families who want us to look at any potential changes from 24 to 25. I get 2025 information and the tax information is actually higher. I don't still put that into the FAFSA. I just don't change anything at all, right? So definitely don't feel like you need to share that information with us. If you wanted to have a conversation potentially about any recent changes to financial picture that may change FAFSA information for future years, right? So not going to impact for this current year, but say when we get down the line to, I don't know if you want to say it, but 27, 28, 28, 29, that's kind of when we can start looking at your situation and kind of taking some information and seeing, hey, how is this going to actually impact any of the federal financial aid that I'm receiving? Because the really other cool thing about the Pacific Grant is it is based on your FAFSA information from your application year, right? So if you did the FAFSA now, we calculated Pacific Grant for 26-27. If you win the lottery after we calculate that Pacific Grant, we're not going to touch it, right? If you have an $8,000 Pacific Grant, even if FAFSA info changes the next couple of years, we never lower the Pacific Grant amount. We just see that you've done a FAFSA for the next year. Your Pacific Grant is going to automatically renew for whatever it was that we calculated that first year for you too. So
Yeah, that's so valuable. Thank you, Griffin. Because people wonder, is my grant going to lower? Is my loan going to get affected? A lot of concerns with that. And one person reached out to me and asked if, in terms of academic merit scholarship that was potentially offered or will be offered, is that pretty finalized? Kind of a concern is the parents' income is going to be shifting potentially, and they just want to make sure that they're doing everything in their power. So, can you speak a little bit about
Yeah.
what you've seen on the academic merit side?
Yeah, so important thing for those is to know that those academic merit scholarships aren't based at any way at all on FAFSA data or even financials, right? So that information is just based solely on that application for admission to Pacific, right? So our admissions folks, when they're looking at your application and making those decisions, they don't have FAFSA info in front of them, they don't have SAI in front of them, income info in front of them, right? Those decisions for those amounts are being made totally independently of that, right? Where that info does come into play is when we start looking again at that Pacific grant, at that stuff on our side, any federal based eligibility. And that is going to be where starting that conversation is going to be really important, especially if there are changes for this year and potentially for coming years as well. But, kind of similarly, if you have a really good switch up in your financial situation, nothing's ever going to happen to that academic scholarship. So,
Yeah, and I think just letting us know, letting your admissions counselor know, like, hey, I brought my GPA up from a 3.8 to a 3.9 in
mm,
one semester to the next. Is that play a role? And the best thing we can do is say, yeah, that let's look at it. And I think that's something to just put out there and have that conversation. Griffin, something a follow-up to one of the circumstances that you were talking about in that last slide. A question came up about what if we're seeing, other awards that are from other schools that are potentially giving more funds, more opportunities, and we're just like, we want to make Pacific work. Is that kind of appropriate in terms of circumstances? Like, what's the line that,
yeah.
in
Yeah,
that conversation?
really good question. And because I know, some schools do have like a show us and we'll match it policy. And I always really, really want to be clear that that is not something that Pacific does, right? We don't view financial aid packages and then match another offer from another institution. With that being said, though, absolutely we want to look at those offers to see if there's anything we missed, right? Looking at those offers gives us a really good idea potentially to see if there's any potential bump we can do based on any circumstances that we don't know about. And it really helps us look and compare financial aid packages to see if there's anything on the financial aid package you're sending that we're seeing that you're not, right? So, for example, I know some schools automatically package or automatically put parent plus loan eligibility on their financial aid packages, which makes the out of pocket look lower than it is because they're assuming that folks are going to borrow a loan. So, sharing those packages with us really helps us see if there's anything that you're missing out on, and then also see if there's anything we're missing out on to offer additional as well. So,
Yeah, and as missions counselors too, we have an amazing spreadsheet that actually Uncle Jeff developed where we're comparing, apples to apples comparison on direct costs and helping, since we see a lot of financial aid packages, we can kind of guide you through that and say, yeah, the reason why they have this is because of this that we've seen, or we recommend that, yeah, we're about a few, $1,000 shy. Join the senior preview day, you'll get $2,000. Now the gap isn't so big. So I think having that conversation is important. Another question that popped up is kind of along the lines is it pretty much set in stone if nothing has changed in terms of income, my GPA is the same, we got the financial aid package, is this it? I know that's a hard question, Griffin, but
I mean,
it
short
is a
answer
question
is
that came
no,
up. Yeah.
right? Short answer is no. Like I said, sometimes folks need a little bit of a push, right? Sometimes that can help make the difference between schools. And we recognize that, right? I know that one thing we want to make sure is that we are offering financial aid packages where when students come to Pacific at the end of 4 years, our job is to make sure that folks are leaving in a better financial situation than when they came, right? And a big piece of that is making sure that the financial aid package that we're offering is actually reflective, again, of a student's desire to be here, a student's academic record, even if there's nothing else going on. Those are the kind of things that we definitely want to hear out about if, a certain amount is going to help make that difference and help make Pacific the best fit too. So.
Yeah, and we always tell families not over until it's over. So let's continue to have a conversation. If it, we want to cross our fingers and toes, we did everything in our power to have you enter the fall. And if we're like, hey, you know what, here's the resources, and you say, hey, you know what, maybe I need a year and then I want to transfer because I really want to make Pacific a possibility. We'll do everything in our power to make sure you're connected with the right people and have the resources you need to make that decision. The last question, I'll kind of close a little bit of, I'll help you out, Griffin, on this question. So kind of with the scholarships. So just to go over our timeline a little bit more with our students and families on here. A lot of our families and students are applying right now through the Common Application if you haven't already done so. Please do that. It's a free application on Common App. Common App is an amazing resource with over 2,000 schools on there, and I believe 475 of them are now no longer require an application fee. So there's a lot of great resources, and we're one of them that no longer require an application fee. We just need your official transcript. We'll make that decision on your merit scholarship that is renewable between $10,000 to $40,000 per year. You're filling out your FAFSA. It opened up in October, like Griffin said, working out the portion where we need some parent information on your financial situation, and also signing for one of our senior preview days. We have a lot of really great options, virtual or in person, all the way up until first week of March, I believe. So please be sure to sign up for that for 2,000 more per year. And then we're going to be opening up our additional scholarships that are going to be available, I believe, starting actually now with around this time for additional scholarships. And if you need some information, reach out to us. We'll send you that information on the additional scholarships based on some of the additional talents you have outside of your transcript. So we'd love for you to apply for them. They do close in March, which is typically what you'll see for a lot of outside scholarships, give or take, but a lot of them are kind of closing around March. And so the best thing to do is work on those applications right during the holidays after you're done applying to Pacific, so you can work on those scholarship applications that are closed around March. And like the timeline says, we're trying our best to get you a financial aid package around that time. So then we can have a conversation with families about the costs and understanding what is going to be, what other resources we can provide you. So we're taking you every step of the way. It's a lot to take in, but as you can see from this Zoom, we're here to help you. And Griffin is an amazing resource with financial aid, and all of us are going to be guiding all of you through this process. So if you do have some additional questions, contact your admissions counselor, contact any one of us. We're happy to support you. And what we'll also do too is we're able to kind of guide you guys through any additional steps with some other resources. So be sure to come to our senior preview day to hear more. And I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight and learning a little bit more. Thank you, Griffin, for putting that in there, your contact information, and connecting with their financial aid counselor moving forward. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. We wish you the best during the senior year. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you guys in the fall. So thank you so much. Let's give a virtual round of applause for Griffin and his time with us during this evening. Yeah, thank you. Yep, virtual claps, virtual emojis. I love it. Griffin, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for families for making time for us. And we hope to talk to you guys all really soon. Have a beautiful evening. Take care.
Thanks, Griffin. You're the best.
Thanks, Griffin. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
beautiful
Bye-bye.
evening.
Thanks,
Take
everybody. Have a
care.
good night. Go
Thank you.
Boxers.